The child stood frozen by the rain-slicked curb beside the gleaming black limousine, her small fingers wrapped so fiercely around the strap of her worn backpack that her knuckles had turned pale. She had only paused outside the towering glass office building to escape the downpour, but the words drifting through the air stopped her cold. Two security guards near the revolving doors were speaking casually in fluent Mandarin, completely confident that no one around them could possibly understand. Their voices stayed low, yet every syllable struck the girl's ears with the force of a thunderclap. One guard tilted his head toward the luxury sedan idling at the curb, the car meant for the billionaire owner of the company. Once he steps inside, everything will unfold exactly as we arranged. The second guard gave a short nod. The brakes were replaced early this morning. No one will suspect a thing. By the time anyone realizes what happened, it will be far too late. The girl felt the air leave her lungs. Her grandmother had raised her ever since they moved from Shanghai years ago, and though she spoke flawless English, Chinese had remained the language of home, of whispered bedtime stories and quiet kitchen conversations. She understood every single word. Her eyes darted toward the entrance just as the billionaire, Daniel Harrison, one of the youngest self-made moguls in the country, emerged surrounded by a cluster of assistants and executives. Cameras flashed in rapid bursts. Employees offered warm smiles. Investors reached out to shake his hand. No one seemed to notice that death itself was waiting just a few feet away. The girl knew she had mere seconds. Pushing down the panic rising in her throat, she dashed through the crowd. "Sir, please do not get into that car." Security men moved to block her path immediately. Daniel barely glanced in her direction. The guards were speaking Chinese, she pleaded. They said someone tampered with your brakes. "They want to kill you." The entire entrance went silent. One guard went pale, his composure crumbling in an instant. The other let out a forced, hollow laugh. "She's just making things up." But Daniel caught something strange. Neither guard asked what exactly she had overheard. Instead, they exchanged a quick, fearful look that betrayed everything. He turned slowly to his chief of security, checked the vehicle. Within minutes, technicians swarmed the limousine. The crowd waited in an eerie hush. Then one mechanic stumbled backward, his face ashen. "Nobody touched this car." His shout echoed off the glass facade. "The brake line has been intentionally severed." Gasps rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Daniel stared at the car that would have become his coffin before the hour was out. Police officers, already stationed nearby due to a scheduled public event, rushed in and surrounded the scene. The two guards bolted. They barely covered 10 steps before officers tackled them to the wet pavement. As handcuffs clicked around their wrists, one of them shot a look of pure venom at the girl. "If you had not understood Chinese," he started, but he never finished. Daniel turned his attention to the trembling child. Rain dripped from her hair, her shoes were scuffed and thin, and her backpack looked like it had been stitched together multiple times. She appeared more frightened than anyone else present. He walked over slowly and lowered himself to one knee so their eyes were level. "You saved my life." She dropped her gaze. "I just could not let you die." "What is your name?" "Emily. Where are your parents?" She hesitated before answering. "They passed away 3 years ago." Daniel's expression softened. "And who takes care of you now?" "My grandma." She explained that her grandmother cleaned offices at night while Emily stayed in the school library until it was time to go home together. The rain had delayed everything that afternoon and placed her outside that building at precisely the right moment. Daniel looked up at the soaring headquarters behind him. Hundreds of people worked inside, and millions of dollars exchanged hands every hour. Yet none of his elaborate security systems had protected him. A little girl with nothing but bravery had accomplished what all that money could not. As the flashing police lights painted the wet pavement in red and blue, investigators started questioning everyone present. Early findings revealed that the assassination plot had been orchestrated by business rivals desperate to derail a merger worth billions. The two guards had accepted enormous bribes, convinced their secret conversation was safe, because they assumed no one nearby understood Mandarin. They never imagined that the quiet child waiting in the rain would catch every word. Hours later, after she had given her statement, Emily prepared to leave with her grandmother, who had rushed to the scene in tears after hearing what had happened. Daniel stopped them. "I owe your granddaughter my life." Her grandmother smiled gently. "She only did what anyone should do." Daniel shook his head. "No, many people hear danger and stay silent because they are afraid." She spoke even though she risked everything. He reached into his jacket, then paused. Money suddenly felt like the smallest possible gesture of thanks. Instead, he handed Emily his personal business card. "If you ever need anything, call me." Weeks slipped by. Emily had nearly forgotten about the card until one evening when her grandmother collapsed from exhaustion during a night shift. Doctors discovered a serious heart condition requiring immediate surgery that neither of them could afford. With trembling fingers, Emily searched her backpack and found Daniel's card. She almost did not call, convinced that someone as busy as a billionaire would never remember a little girl. But he answered personally. "I have been waiting for your call." Within hours, top specialists were examining her grandmother, and the surgery was fully covered. Her recovery went smoothly. Daniel did not stop there. He established a scholarship in Emily's parents' names, ensuring she could attend the finest schools without worrying about tuition. He also found a comfortable apartment close to her grandmother's workplace so they would never again struggle to pay rent. When reporters later asked Daniel why he had invested so much in one child, he smiled before answering. "People think wealth changes lives. Sometimes it does. But courage changes destiny." He looked toward Emily sitting in the front row during the scholarship ceremony. That little girl had every reason to stay quiet. She had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Yet she chose to save a stranger because it was the right thing to do. Emily smiled shyly. She still carried that same repaired backpack. She still spoke softly. But everyone in that room now understood that true heroes rarely wear expensive suits or stand behind microphones. Sometimes they are simply children standing in the rain, brave enough to speak one sentence that changes another person's future forever. The months that followed transformed both Emily's life and Daniel Harrison's in ways neither could have foreseen. Although the police arrested the two corrupt guards, the investigation uncovered a much larger criminal network. The men had not acted alone. They had been hired by an international business syndicate that had lost millions when Daniel refused to participate in illegal financial deals. The failed assassination had embarrassed the organization, and investigators feared they might try again. Daniel's security team doubled every precaution, but he found himself thinking less about his own safety and more about the brave little girl who had changed his fate with a single warning. Emily, meanwhile, struggled to adapt to her new life. Daniel had arranged her grandmother's surgery, paid every hospital bill, and enrolled Emily in one of the city's best private schools. Yet, despite the beautiful classrooms and fresh opportunities, she felt like an outsider. Many students came from wealthy families. Some whispered that she only attended because a billionaire had taken pity on her. Emily ignored the comments and focused on her studies, remembering her grandmother's words, "Never let someone else's opinion decide your future." Daniel visited them often, not as a benefactor, but as a friend. He discovered that Emily had an extraordinary gift for languages. Beyond English and Chinese, she had started teaching herself Spanish from library books. She loved solving puzzles and reading about history, often asking Daniel thoughtful questions about business, leadership, and integrity. He admired her curiosity and drive. In return, she reminded him that success meant little if it was not used to help others. One afternoon, Daniel invited Emily and her grandmother to the grand opening of a new children's education center funded by his foundation. Hundreds of guests attended, including government officials, journalists, and business leaders. During his speech, Daniel surprised everyone by calling Emily onto the stage. The audience applauded warmly as the shy girl walked forward. Daniel smiled into the microphone. "Many people believe heroes are fearless. They are wrong. Heroes are afraid, but they choose to act anyway. Months ago, this young girl heard something terrible. She could have stayed silent. Instead, she risked herself to save someone she had never met. Because of her courage, I am standing here today." The crowd rose to its feet in a standing ovation. Emily's cheeks flushed red. She whispered quietly, "I only did what my parents would have wanted." There was not a dry eye in the room. The story spread across television and social media. Millions watched the video of Daniel honoring the girl who had saved his life. Messages of support poured in from around the world. Schools invited Emily to speak about courage and integrity. She always ended her talks with the same simple message. You do not have to be powerful to make a difference. Sometimes all you need is the courage to tell the truth. Not everyone celebrated her growing recognition. Unknown to Emily, one remaining member of the criminal syndicate blamed her for destroying their plan. Determined to silence the only witness who understood the guard's conversation, he began watching her from a distance. Investigators eventually intercepted suspicious communications suggesting another attack was being planned, not against Daniel this time, but against the girl who had exposed everything. The police acted immediately. One evening, officers arrived at Daniel's office with alarming news. They are targeting Emily. Daniel did not hesitate. Bring her and her grandmother somewhere safe, starting tonight. Within an hour, they were moved to a secure location under police protection. Emily was frightened, but Daniel reassured her. You protected me when no one else could. Now it is my turn to protect you. The investigation reached its climax 2 weeks later when authorities arrested the syndicate's leader while he attempted to flee the country. Documents recovered during the raid revealed the full assassination plot, along with evidence linking several corrupt executives to numerous crimes. Thanks to Emily's testimony and the evidence gathered afterward, the entire organization collapsed. When the trial concluded, the judge praised the courage of a young girl whose honesty had prevented a murder and exposed a criminal empire. Years later, Daniel often looked back on that rainy afternoon outside his office. Every important decision he made reminded him of the child who had proven that character is worth more than wealth. Emily eventually graduated at the top of her class with dreams of becoming an international lawyer, determined to help innocent people and fight corruption wherever she found it. Daniel proudly attended every graduation, every award ceremony, and every milestone, never calling himself her savior. Instead, whenever anyone thanked him for changing Emily's life, he always smiled and gave the same answer. "I did not save her. She saved me first." Years passed, and the story of that rainy afternoon slowly became a legend inside Harrison Global. New employees often heard the tale of the little girl who had saved the company's founder, though few realized she was a real person. To most, it sounded like an inspiring corporate myth. But Daniel Harrison never allowed anyone to forget that it was true. Emily grew into an exceptional young woman. Fluent in 5 languages and graduating at the top of her university class, she earned a law degree specializing in international criminal justice. She rejected offers from prestigious law firms that promised enormous salaries. Instead, she joined a task force dedicated to exposing corruption, human trafficking, and financial crime across international borders. Daniel could not have been prouder. "You have become exactly the kind of person the world needs," he told her after her graduation ceremony. Emily smiled. "You taught me that success means helping people. I'm just following your example." One autumn morning, nearly 15 years after they first met, Daniel stood before the board of Harrison Global. At 60 years old, he announced that he would be stepping back from daily operations and creating a charitable foundation focused on education for underprivileged children. Then he made one final announcement. "I would like to introduce the newest member of our board of directors." The conference room doors opened. Emily walked in wearing a simple navy suit, carrying the same repaired backpack she had kept all those years, not because she still needed it, but to remind herself where she came from. The executives rose to their feet in applause.